Well, the Senate Republican agenda, as you know, is all about health care these days. We just finished our lunch and spent probably 90% of the time talking about the way forward on health care. We had Seema Verma, the head of CMS, up here, who's an expert on the whole health care system, and in particular the Medicaid issue. That was on the heels of another working group session we had earlier today. So we continue in these 3 times a week meetings, spending our time on the healthcare issue, which we'll move forward with sometime in the near future.
Well, also this afternoon we're having a hearing in a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on border security. We have the Chief Border Patrol Agent for the Customs and Border Protection, Ron Vitello, and will talk to us about what we need to do in order to gain not only situational awareness but operational control of our border. Probably, I think, anticipating his testimony, he will say that we need some mixture of 3 things. We need infrastructure, call it a wall, call it a fence, call it what you will, technology, and then personnel. That's the combination. It's a little bit different in San Diego than it is in the Rio Grande Valley. But this president has made a commitment to securing the border. It is a matter of political will. He has it. President Obama did not. And we look forward to working with him to keep that promise and secure the border once and for all.
As the leader pointed out, the senators on the Republican side of the aisle are very focused on rescuing people in this country from a failing Obamacare system. And the reason it's failing is because costs are way too high. Premiums, deductibles, co-pays, out-of-pocket costs are skyrocketing. Taxes are way too high, and the options are way too few. We now have 1 in 3 counties in this country where there is only one option on the Obamacare exchanges, and that affects 26 states across the country. So obviously this has to be fixed. We believe the American people deserve better. A system of health insurance coverage in this country that gives them more choices and more options, greater competition, and puts downward pressure on prices, because I think most Americans want more than anything else to see the cost of their insurance go down, not up, which is what they've had with Obamacare. So that's something that as we work through this process, and it is something that's entailing right now an intense amount of focus from our conference, at the end of this, we hope we'll get a result that will be better for the American people and bring that cost curve down in a direction that will improve their lives and make it less expensive for them to cover their families.
The reason we're spending so much time on health care is because Obamacare is too costly and it is collapsing. Insurance companies continue to pull out around the country, so people have few choices. And for those people who do have choices, they're noticing that the costs continue to go up in spite of the fact. So when you take a look around the country and the choices people have, in my home state of Wyoming, we're down to 1. 2/3 of the country are down to either 1 or 2. And the Democrats say, well, there's a mandate. People have to buy it. In spite of the mandate, over 20 million people chose not to sign up. Either they chose to say, no, I'm not going to buy it, I'll just pay the fine, or they got an exemption from paying the fine. And the Democrats' solution to that is now a single-payer health care system. Remember, they tried that in Vermont a couple of years ago. They had to pull back because it was just too expensive. But that's not stopped them in California, where there's now a proposal for single-payer health care in California. The cost estimates by the state of California are $400 billion, and yet the whole general fund budget for the state of California is less than half of that amount. So the proposal that they're having is over twice the cost of the general fund of California. At that cost, the Democrats' answer is, well, we'll just raise taxes some more. The Democrats' approach is government control and higher costs and higher taxes. We're working to lower the costs and give people more personal, individual freedom.
So our members are going to the floor every week talking about who is talking to them and what we're hearing from the people we work for. Just a couple of stories. Holly in southeast Missouri, who is talking to them and what we're hearing from the people we work for. Just a couple of stories. Holly in southeast Missouri lost her insurance policy because that company dropped out of the system. She's a cancer survivor, and none of the 4 doctors that she's had over the last several years are available to her under the policy she can get now. If you've survived cancer and you've got doctors you trust, not being able to get an insurance policy that lets you go to any of those doctors is truly a crisis. Ken in Kansas City, Missouri, lost the policy he had, dropped out of the exchange in 2015, so he got a new policy. It dropped out of that company dropped out of the exchange in January of 2017. So in that 3-year period of time, he's now dealing with 3 different insurance companies who all each had a higher deductible than Ken had before. That's what people are facing all over the country. That's why this system has to be changed, and it has to be changed in a way that makes sense for people who want to have more choices and more access than they have now.
I just want to continue the theme that Roy started with. A business owner from Aurora, Colorado, said that as a business owner, they pay their own insurance and Obamacare is not working for them. Last year, their premium went up 20% for less insurance with a higher deductible and less coverage. This past year, they just got a cancellation notice that their insurance plan will no longer be offered and that they have to start looking for a new plan. In Lafayette, Colorado, a father wrote to my office talking about a bronze HSA plan that covered himself, his wife, and his 2 daughters. They just received a renewal notice from the insurer that informed them that their premium for 2017 would increase by nearly 40%. They end it with, "This is unconscionable. The ACA needs to be repealed immediately."
Yeah.
How does the Trump budget affect rural poor voters in your city?
Well, how the rural voters react to all of this healthcare depends upon what we craft.
I'm talking about the budget.
Oh, the budget?
The budget.
Well, look, the president's budget, as we all know, is a recommendation. Every president since I've been here, and that covers a good period of time, has made a recommendation, and then we decide what we're going to do with those recommendations. So we'll be taking into account what the president's recommending, but it will not be determinative in every respect.
That doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement of this document that was sent here.
Well, I didn't engage in a ringing endorsement of President Bush's budgets either. I mean, these are all recommendations. You all may recall that from time to time we've voted on president's budgets, and members of the party of the president, I know this happened during the Obama administration, the Democrats voted against President Obama's budget. So it's a recommendation. We'll take these things into consideration and we'll move forward. What I do like about it is it clearly focuses on increasing defense spending, which we know is absolutely critical given the threats that we face.
There's no pattern of the president trying to interfere in some way with ongoing investigations. Apparently told James Comey that he should drop the Flynn investigation, and now reports of him urging his intel chiefs to downplay the issue of collusion. Does this concern you in any way?
Well, as all of you know, this investigation is going to be handled by 2 entities, the special counsel and the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I'm confident that both of them will handle it well.
Does it concern you, Senator?
Back to the budget for a second. You mentioned Medicaid at the top of your remarks. On that point specifically, the president's budget would make deep cuts to Medicaid. Is that something Republicans in Congress want?
Well, as I said before, the president's made his recommendations. We're in the process right now of deciding what we think ought to be done with Medicaid. We had the head of CMS up here just a few minutes ago talking about this. And that's why we've been having 3 meetings a week to determine exactly what kind of health care repeal and replacement we're going to have up for a vote here in the Senate.
You can't pass a budget while the health care debate is going on, but yet you want to move the appropriations bill. So what are you going to use to set the top line numbers? Will it be the BCA caps from 2011?
Well, we'll have to negotiate the top line with Senate Democrats. We know that. They will not be irrelevant in the process. And at some point here in the near future, those discussions will begin.
Senator McConnell.
Some of your Republican colleagues complain that you're only talking to Republicans, not holding hearings on health care and doing this behind closed doors. How do you respond to that?
Well, of course not. The Democrats are not interested in
Hearings on health care and doing this behind closed doors. How do you respond to that?
Well, of course not. The Democrats are not interested in fixing this problem. They've made it very, very clear they have no interest whatsoever in fixing the status quo. And my colleagues have already explained what the status quo represents: higher premiums, higher co-payments, higher deductibles, lack of choices. They're apparently happy with that because they don't want to discuss getting something better. So we're not going to waste our time talking to people who have no interest in fixing the problem. Thank you.